Hi all, Gemma here. I'm back after a short reprieve. I went back into the rabbit hole for a while and I went into some old self-defeating behaviours. Here comes the astrology hit because Mercury's retrograde at the moment. And retrogradations take us back over old lessons to see if we truly have learnt them. So it's like we go into a deeper layer of what we're healing and what we're learning. And yeah, my behavior was pretty darn self-defeating. I wanted to give up. My confidence has taken a knock as a result because I've been sort of on shaky ground for a week or two and just sort of hiding away, really, I guess. My self-esteem fluctuates a lot at times, and I'm a confident woman, but confidence and self-esteem, even though they can work together, they're not the same thing. I think I may have mentioned that in a previous video. But strangely, back onto my sub-personalities thing, because I'm in the middle of doing that series. The one I'm going to cover today is the victim sub-personality, and it kind of ties in nicely with the fact that I've just come out of a very, very, I'm a victim sort of mode. And I don't mean that I like to think to myself I'm a victim. I just mean those patterns, those old core beliefs that resurface and yeah, replay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to read a poem. There's a surprise, haha. And it's from my book again. And if the camera's a bit shaky, it's because my hands are a bit shaky. Like I say, my self-esteem has gone into a bit of a dip again, but please bear with. So it's called Moon in Pisces. It's from my book. The reason it's called Moon in Pisces, I'm a sun sign Sagittarius. I'll get the word out in a minute. And my moon sign is Pisces. So I don't know who watching knows anything about astrology, but we've got a rising sign, a sun sign, a moon sign, so on and so forth throughout all the planets. Astrology's huge, vast subject. You'd never learn it all. It's as vast as the cosmos itself, infinite and ever expanding, but hey ho. So yeah, with a moon sign Pisces, we can be very, we're very sound. I tell you what, I'll read you the poem first, then I'll talk on the subjects. So it's called Moon in Pisces. Moon in Pisces, that's the sign of the lunar body I chose as mine. It's a tough one to navigate, sensitive, escapist, a victim of fate. Or at least that's what the soul believes, but of course it self-deceives. And it also wants to take on guilt. It has an urge to atone, with an ideal to self-immolate and throw itself into delusional states. It wants to save the world with perfectionist ideals, but of course this is the wrong approach, yet this is how it feels. It's not through taking on intense layers of pain that we heal ourselves individually or help others with the strain. It's only when we flip it and learn to love ourselves, turn inward for the answers and to heaven from the hell. Take back our projections and stop seeing through their eyes, strengthen our own boundaries and stop the self-deceiving lies. And then as we achieve it, the more we utilise the gifts at the disposal of this watery lunar sign. Added to the conflict of my own chart personally is the element of Hades, mothering karma smothers me. Abandonment, rejection, disapproval too, yet the lessons that it offers are worth all that ensued. For as I learn to validate, approve of and love myself, I no longer seek externally and complete who I am instead. And so the positive elements of the Piscean moon, imaginative, creative, otherworldly, intuitive sign, empathic and compassionate, mystical and divine, they're mine for the taking as I integrate over time. So firstly, before I go more into the victim sub-personality, I just want to talk on a couple of points in that poem itself. When I mention the line, stop seeing through their eyes, I don't mean about not having empathy with others. I don't mean about the ability to put yourself in their shoes. What I mean is, with Moon in Pisces, karmically, there's quite a strong urge to literally see yourself reflected back through others. So you kind of get lost in the personalities of how other people see you, the projections of how other people see you, because there's a merge urge. There's a strong merge urge with people with their Moon in Pisces, with the Pisces sign in general. But a moon sign, your moon sign placement, is your innate emotional inner world, your innate emotional responses, as I look at it, that have accrued over past lives. So it's kind of like an emotional default setting. And in order to move more into your sun sign, you have to navigate the karma. Karma just means lessons, potential gifts, because the birth charts, it's a potentiality. It's not set in stone. I believe certain things are fated, but it's kind of like a workbook for this incarnation. That's how I look at it. So yeah. And so when I say about stop seeing through their eyes, it's not about, like I say, it's not about not having empathy. It's about creating strong boundaries, because Moon in Pisces, or the sign of Pisces in general, lacks boundaries. And that's why it can take on other people's thoughts, feelings, emotions, experiences. And so I've done a lot of work over the years on my own energetic boundaries. And that's also the reason it falls into victimhood so easily as well. It's kind of like, it's a bit of a sucker for a sob story, and it gets easily swayed, and it's one of the mutable signs. And interestingly, my Sagittarian sun, and I'm also Sagittarius rising, they're both mutable as well. So mutable signs, they flow very much with the environment, they're fluid. And I haven't got much cardinal or fixed in my chart. I've got a couple of cardinal placings and one fixed. So I'm going on a total astrology tangent here, so I'm going to rein it back in, because this is part of the sub-personalities bit I'm doing. Right, note to self, stay on track. Anyway, or back on track rather than stay on track, because I'm always, see, I'm doing it again. So what else do I want to say about the poem itself? Yeah, in relation to the mother in karma, the Hades moon. So the Hades moon is when the moon sign in the chart is in aspect to Pluto, can be any aspect to Pluto. And remember, what I'm talking about here isn't really surface level astrology, it's in-depth karmic astrology. I studied my chart via different astrologers over the years. I'm not an astrologer, I don't claim to be, but I do have a great affinity with the subject. So my mum and me, our relationship, I've noticed recently, post sort of coming off the ward and post sort of integrating more myself, because remember, it's a journey. Yes, I have come out of the rabbit hole, but I'm still going closer and closer to uprooting stuff on deeper layers and levels all the time. And my mum and me have a much better relationship now. It's nice, it's lovely. I'm enjoying it, is what I'm saying. I want to acknowledge that. You know, growing up, we were like friends, and it was, I say that, friends in the sense of, it wasn't like, I didn't have a firm guide as a mum, but I did, I've paused again, because I'm thinking, I don't want this to sound like I'm blaming anybody, because I'm not. That really isn't what this is about. It's more about talking about what happened. And yeah, it was like having a friendship, but it wasn't like having a mom. It was difficult in that regard. That's what I'm saying. So, but now it's nice, because now we're getting on as adults, and we're, you know, it's the dynamic is smoothing out, and it's lovely. So that I just wanted to touch on and mention, and how much that has improved. What else did I want to say as I was reading through this? Yeah, I don't think I wanted to mention much more about the poem itself, but I've made other side notes for the victim personality. So yeah, the self-defeating behaviours, the wanting to give up, I very much felt that way. Sometimes I feel crushed by like the thoughts and opinions of others. I'm still digging through that, because for me it was very much connected with the trauma I went through as a kid, because it was so exposed, because so many people knew about what happened to me. I kind of spent my whole life thinking I only had to move and other people knew. I know that might sound strange, but because that seed was planted early on off the tail end of trauma, I kind of always felt like my insides were outside, and everything I did was exposed, and people always knew everything about me. It's a tough one to reconcile and to live through, but that's how it's improving. It improves over time. Of course it does. Everything has the potential to improve over time. But when I was in that rabbit hole again recently, I was just feeling crushed again. And I was like, well, I'm not getting anywhere. You know, I'm struggling with different areas financially, stuff like that. And I'm doing these videos, and okay, whether or not it'll lead to anything, who knows? I mean, fingers crossed, I hope it does. But but sometimes it feels like the odds are always stacked against me, and that actually isn't me going into victim psyche. That's more the reality of the situation in more ways, and it's hard at times like that to keep going, and you do want to give up. And it is, you know, things like self-immolation, which are, like I say, very much associated with Lunar Pisceans, but also, you know, you don't have to have your moon in Pisces to have suicidal thoughts and to see the world as better off without you and stuff like that. And this is something else I've dealt with a lot over the years, reoccurring bouts of just wanting to end it all, because somehow it's like the ultimate form of escape, isn't it? It is like the ultimate form of escape. And, you know, my heart goes out to anyone who's going through that sort of thing, because it's bloody not easy at all. When it becomes a pattern and it keeps reoccurring, it's hard. It is hard when it becomes one of those default settings. And that's one of the things I've got notes on, actually, because there's a correlation a lot of people don't realise, right? When we become adults and we make choices and decisions, when children are abused, particularly sexually abused, but when it is more so in that instance, but I actually think it goes a bit further afield than that. But because the right to choose is taken away, you're literally denied the right to choose. You know, you're a small child, it's your body, but someone else comes along and decides that they get to decide what happens to it. So it collapses that core, it hits that power center, it affects your will, it affects your confidence, and it affects your ability to know that you have a choice. And it's not enough to say, oh, but you're an adult now. It really doesn't work like that. This stuff does stay in our systems, and you can see it. No one would have mental emotional health if things just went away across the board. You know, we wouldn't be talking about this subject because there wouldn't be any need to. And yet it's very dominant in the world at the moment. So yeah, when that happens to kids, it does. They're not given a choice. And unless you work through all those layers, it stays. It stays. And even while you're working through it, it's a tough one to shift. It really is. All the implications and offshoots of what can happen as a result. And of course, the circumstances are unique for everyone. So another thing, what I was going to say to offshoot from that and extend it a little further, I think when the way we talk to our kids as parents sometimes can be very detrimental, and very often it's not that we mean harm, we're just repeating patterns that were put in place ourselves, and we often don't even take the time to notice. Like when we tell kids, oh, do as I say, do this, do that, and we're very forceful, and it's like almost boundary violating with communication. Just do this, do that, do as I say, blah, blah, blah. We don't, you know, rather than asking, requesting, that surely that's healthier. And I get the point that there are times when children may be in potential danger, and so you literally have to holler and say, like, whoa, oh, stop, do what I'm saying here. But I think for the vast majority of the time, if you speak to kids like that, they don't grow up with a sense of autonomy and self-respect, and they don't feel comfortable making decisions then as a result. If the adults have never sort of put the faith in them to say, I trust you to make decisions as you go, if that groundwork hasn't been laid, then that can lead to feeling like you really do not have a choice. And so it's not as simple as you're an adult now, make your own bloody decisions. It really isn't that cut and dried at all. And so, yeah, you can fall back into like patterns of victimhood and stuff, because all these things form in early childhood. It's anything, that's all the groundwork where it's laid, and anything else is subsequent to that and is only adding on top of whatever hasn't been dealt with in those early formative years. And the antidote, right, I think to a lot of this is something that's greatly lacking in modern society. It's something that I struggle with myself massively, but it's something that you see lacking across the board, and that's compassion. Because how much does ego override compassion? How often does the egoic mind come in and would it rather be right or wrong or project than actually be kind? It is hard to be kind at times in the current climate. It's hard to be kind to ourselves. I find it particularly difficult because as I've said in a former video, my mental state can be very aggressive, and because I do have intrusive thoughts, and because I do have a lot of difficulty centering and controlling my thoughts with other stuff wanting to creep in, it's hard. It's hard to show yourself compassion when it's hard to focus and stuff like that, you know, and when you've got angry, old, unresolved stuff coming at you. And not always angry stuff, but the angry voice can creep in as a result of the other stuff that's still lurking. It's all layers. Like I said in another video, they form at different times, these little bits, and then they all end up in conflict with one another. So yeah, for me, sort of like, I think being a victim became a kind of persona, a way of being. I remember in my teens that I would, the slightest thing would go wrong, and because I didn't have coping mechanisms, can't even say it, let alone have them, because I didn't have coping mechanisms, I had this default setting where I'd think, well, I'll just take my own life. And I didn't realise at the time that that was a pattern, and that it's one I still have to deal with now. It's one I still have to go back over. So thankfully, Mercury retrograde took me into another foray. Hopefully it's the last bloody one, but who knows, you know, a healing journey is a journey. It's not about where it ends. It's about learning different things at different times and going into deeper layers at different times of different bits and integrating as much as you can to have a more peaceful, enjoyable life as a result of that. So anyway, that is my subpersonality, the victim. Oh look, V for victim. And for peace as well. Hello, peace. So yeah, I'm going to leave that particular video here. But anyone who sees this, thank you for coming back. If you've seen previous videos, if this is the first one you've seen, thank you for watching. If you've got this far along, then you'll hear me say, if you like my content, please like, share, subscribe, feel free to comment. It's all appreciated. Thank you to anyone watching this. Much love, and I'll see you again soon.